All right, guys, Mike here from the Wellness Bucket, and big time excited today to have Joe Jacobi join us for today's interview. And Joe, I'll introduce you here in a second, but first of all, thank you so much for spending the time today.
I always enjoy our conversations, Mike.
Likewise. Joe, real quickly, it's just a brief little snippet here, but I could speak probably for for an hour introducing and talking about you, but I'll keep it basic. You are a performance coach, executive trainer, professional speaker, and the coolest thing I think is you are an Olympic gold medalist. Olympic gold medalist. You actually, I'm reading here because I don't want to mess it up. You competed in 2 Summer Olympics and you won gold medal in Barcelona in 1992. Now, here's the thing I didn't know, Joe, and I actually looked, as I looked some stuff up, is that you and your partner, you guys are actually the first American team, and tell me if this is wrong, in history to capture gold medal in the whitewater slalom. Is that right?
We were the first Americans ever to win a gold medal in whitewater canoe slalom.
Wow, first. Not like, first. To be first is incredible. Wow.
Well, and what's actually amazing, and we'll get more into this during the interview, so far the only, which I hope will change. I mean, the Americans haven't won a gold medal in this event in whitewater of any kind, men's, women's, canoe, or kayak of any kind since 1992.
So that was the last, so when you guys won it, that was the last time?
That was the last time a gold medal was won.
Gold medal. Wow.
Yeah, we've won a few medals since those games. We had a silver medal in 1996, and we had a women's kayak and a silver medal in the 2004 Olympics in women's kayak, and that's it. So it's there's work to be done. I mean, I think. And we'll get into that because, my job, I used to be the CEO of USA Canoe Kayak, which is the national governing body for the sport of canoeing. And believe me, I'm very proud of our athletic accomplishments, but I'd like to see a lot more people with that same decoration.
Sure. Wow. I did not realize that. Wow. Even because, it wasn't special enough, but just think about it. The last time was back in 92. Regardless, Joe, it's huge congrats, and it's every time I look at that and I see Olympic gold medalist, just to have that, just to be able to say that, it's awesome. So I just wanted to say thank you for your time. It's awesome. And I actually want to start off our question today. Very first question actually relates to the Olympics, and I want to read it here because I want to make sure I get it right. Is I can't speak for others. When I think of Olympics, I think of the work, the commitment, the discipline, the focus that must go into training to get to that level. So what I'd like to know from you, Joe, is, I find it challenging 5-6 days a week to go to the gym and work out at 5 in the morning. To win an Olympic gold, to train at that level, what keeps you motivated to put in that time, energy, and effort? I'm just curious for you, what was it?
I think it's a lot of little things working together. First, I always say I think there's a few Olympic sports and Paralympic sports that, I'll just say it like this, that tend to be a little more fun than other sports. I mean, whitewater canoeing is not a bad activity. I mean, you're out on moving whitewater on the rapids, on rivers with your friends, and playing on the river is a big part of training. And I think I related a lot to, I think if you asked a downhill ski racer, usually by the time a downhill ski racer is ready to retire, they may be ready to retire from competing, but they're still going to ski for life, right? And I think that's the way that a lot of paddlers feel about paddling, is that it's truly a sport you can do for life. And I'm still doing that. I'm not necessarily racing like I did before, but I'm always looking for new ways to do new things in the boat, on the water, with a paddle in my hand. So I think that honestly just never leaves you. And then I think relative to staying motivated and doing the work, it's always about being excited to learn and being willing to not so much focus on the results, like what you might get out of winning the Olympics, but to just trust that the process matters, that the going through the day-to-day work and the person that you become in that process, it matters. And then the third thing that I still think about today as much as I did when I was 22 years old, is that I think that I see humans as being energy managers and like working in the energy industry. Like we have to mine for that energy. We have to go dig deep and find it. So we have to cultivate it. Then we have to use it, and then replenish it again. And I think that if you find really healthy ways to keep that energy at a good level, and that's not just a physical process, that's a physical process, a mental process, an emotional process, and a spiritual process. And if you keep those energy kind of sustained the right way, I think that passion to learn and that passion to do better and build good processes becomes interesting. And then those times where you get to test it all, not just the Olympic Games, but in between, there's interesting training camps, there's World Cups, World Championships, national level races, and all of those opportunities, you're always learning, and you have a lot of good chances to test how your work is doing, and then make changes, and that keeps it interesting as well. I think all of these things really work together to hold your attention and find the worthiness in it all.
I love so much there. I love so much there, but I'm just gonna point out two things that stood out. I loved so much there. One, Joe, you said out of the gate was like, I love the word you used. You said, when you're out there, you're playing on the water, not working hard. And sure enough, you're working hard, but you use the word playing, which, language is power. If you say working versus playing, it's two different emotions. So I just love that. I capture that. Like you said, hey, I'm out there playing. That was pretty cool. And then I also love that. I know this from you, Joe, because we've known each other for a while now. But yeah, you're all about the process. It's like, hey, man, about enjoying the process. Who you become, and that's such a powerful. Because I think sometimes we can lose sight of that, right? It's always like that end goal, and how about the process, what we're doing, and like you said, experimenting, trying different things, putting it into experimenting, if you will, like you said. I think that's so true and so necessary to focus on the process. And I appreciate it. I just wanted to point out those two things out of that series of awesomeness that you just laid on us. But I'm assuming this is the same, but I don't want to assume. Is that what keeps you motivated still today? It sounds like it is. Like, what kept you motivated for the Olympic Games? Is that still the same motivation that keeps you going, focusing on the process today, or is it different? Is it the same?
Well, so this is an interesting story. I would say 5 years ago, I would have had a hard time answering that question, because I would say I don't really feel like I'm doing a very good job of keeping myself going. So at that point, when I was the chief executive officer of USA Canoe Kayak, overseeing a coaching staff, an administrative staff, a membership of a couple of thousand people, and just all the administrative functions of the sport of competitive canoeing in the United States, I really bottomed out in my health. All the things that you talk about in your videos, in your newsletter, in your messaging is the exact things that I was suffering from. I was so busy taking care of everybody else that I didn't take care of myself. And so I struggled on those points. So I'm just saying that 5 years ago, I don't think I could have answered this question. What moved me out of that bottoming out process, Mike, was for me, it started with physical health. In January of 2013, I came back to Oklahoma City, where USA Canoe Kayak was headquartered. I spent the Christmas holidays in Tennessee with my family, and then on the first Monday in January, I would always go back to Oklahoma, where our offices were located. And with no goals, with no big plan, I started to participate in the wellness program at the Oklahoma City Boathouse Foundation. And all I was trying to do was break a pattern, basically break the pattern of the Chinese food buffet and the pizza bar, and those things that were not, those poor choices that were stacking up on me and hurting my health, and just change the pattern and play during the lunch hour. So there's that word again, right? That's all it was. It was like playing with my friends, whether it was shooting baskets or doing a game or a CrossFit type workout. And you can imagine it. If you work a regular job, I mean, we have the ability to work our lunch hour, but let's face it, it's a kind of a pain in. On one hand, it's a convenient time to work out, but on the other hand, you got to shower, you got to change, you got to clean up. And it happens that if you find a group of people that are willing to do that, the women that I worked out with, 100 times harder for them than it was for the guys to get ready for work in the afternoon. And it was like, gosh, I looked at, how much, the women getting ready for work in the afternoon. Like for me, it was even easier. So I didn't have an excuse. And so, yes, I think what happens, though, the last thing I'll say in answering this question is the techniques, the strategies that I use to win a gold medal in the Olympic Games. I want to say very clearly, I don't desire to win a gold medal in the Olympics today. And most of my clients don't either. What I've learned to do is to transfer those strategies, those skills that help move people with having a hard time navigating life's complicated river currents, and transferring that information in a way that works for them and get them back into a better flow, a better river flow of their life, of their health, of their performance in business. And so, yes, I went back and did a deep dive into everything that I use to be a successful athlete, and then transferred every single one of those pieces to my life the way I wanted to live it today, which was very different than the way I was when I was 22. And having done that for myself makes it very much easier to do that for clients now as well.
Yeah, the fact, and I know I see this from you, Joe, and the work you do, and the work you put out. There's definitely a transfer of what you took then, and again, I see this, and you just mentioned that what you took. It's almost like you're taking that Olympic style training, call it what you will, mindset, and you've now transferred it and adapted it to what you do today. I see that, and you speak clearly to this in your newsletters, and which, by the way, we'll talk here a little later, which I think everyone should subscribe to. I just love your ideology of taking that and how you plug it into today's world. Which actually, what I want to, and I love that I'm having this conversation with you, Joe, for a lot of reasons. And what I want to ask you, and especially from you, because let's just say, hey, you know what, winning an Olympic gold medal is the apex of, let's just say, about sport. Let's just say that for the sake of this discussion. That's the apex. And what I find, and the way I'm going to apply that to clients that I work with, is like, back in high school or college, they were at the top of their game. They were like high school stars and studs and cross country, like they were at the top of their game. And then, like time goes by, 20 years later, well, we're not 18, 20 anymore. So it's a different body, different mindset, there's a lot of different things. That you've been there. So I'm just curious. So, and I want to hear this from you, Joe, because if you've done this, then someone who's, because sometimes we're trying to move past that, like, yeah, but I used to do X, Y, and Z. I used to be here. I used to be an Olympic gold. How do you go from that mindset, like I used to like, that was then, and how do you just say, okay, that was then, leave that behind, and now this is now, and let me focus on now, where I'm at now, what I can do now, what I want to do now, and lose sight of that mindset that this is what I used to be or used to do. Does that make my answer to that question?
It makes really good sense. And I mean, this is exactly the step that I love to focus on and I love to think about. And that I had to work through it on my own. And I think that one of those things is that, again, I don't think any of us are really trying to want to say we should live like we did 20 years ago. Because if you look at the difference, I'll just use myself, for example, today at 47 versus 25 years ago when I was 22, I know that physically there are some things that I could do when I was 22 I probably couldn't do today. Actually, though, physically there are a lot of things I can do today I couldn't do when I was 22, that's part of the fun of it. And then just from as we make this commitment to being lifelong learners, we learn things, we learn better strategies, we learn um, better tools. We begin to see that river that we're navigating so much differently. We get that bigger picture view, which then allows us to then come in and create that tight shot and navigate things a little bit differently. But I think that the principles are timeless. I got to tell you something that I always recommend. When I'm talking to a young athlete that asks me for advice, on how to approach some element of their career, whether they want to technically do better in kayaking, or maybe they are looking for ways to raise money to support their athletic endeavors. I take a very indirect approach when asking them, because they want direct answers. But I say, look, if you believe that your life is going to go from point A to point B up here, not only do I think that you should figure out all the things that you can do to kind of live in that trajectory, but I think you should find ways to every once in a while take yourself out, give yourself like a third person view on your own journey and document it. Yeah. Because then you're giving yourself a playbook that you can come back to with timeless principles to use over and over and over again. So as your life changes, the rules of Mike really don't change. They're just an application to your tastes and preferences and evolutions that do change, but you can use very timeless principles to keep repeating things that have been proven to work over time, over and over and over again. You're just figuring out how to apply them differently. And I think that if you are willing to take that time to be a documenter of your own journey, from the outside looking in, and write that down. This was the most important thing I did 5 years ago when I had really bottomed out. Not only did I have the confidence that I could really turn my life around, but I thought it was really going to be a good thing. So why not document it the whole way? And what was left was a playbook to kind of help others do the same thing.
That's phenomenal. I think I can't remember who it is, Joe. I don't know if it's Jim Rohn. I forgot who they say, hey, who better else to study than ourselves? Document what you've done, what you've been through, what worked, what didn't. Who better to study than ourselves in our past, so we can know how to navigate. Just like you said, I think that is phenomenal. And I document. I journal too. I know you do, and I'm a big proponent of it. And the funny thing is, it doesn't take that much to do it. I mean, maybe some people, I'm not a writer, but it doesn't take that much to do it. But the implication or the reward it can give you down the road is, the act is so small, but the payoff is tremendous, I think, right, based on what I hear from you.
Yeah, the act of doing it every day. And honestly, sure, to even give a great entrepreneur example of this, I look at Gary Vaynerchuk making Wine Library TV back in the day.
Yeah.
It started off being about wine, but a lot of us could very quickly see that this was becoming a lot bigger than just wine, that there was a process that he was doing. And so this guy very wisely was documenting what he was doing and talking about it. Not just the writing, but just the videos themselves became a way to go back and look at what is happening here, what moved wine from point A to point B, what's that process look like? And VaynerMedia is born.
Yeah.
And now look at the way he's affecting how people are creating strategy for using social media. Sure. And that's just one of the best entrepreneurial examples that you can find anywhere of why it's worthwhile documenting your journey and really figuring out what it is that you're learning. If you believe that you're going to go from A to B, why not just take that little bit of extra effort and document what it is, so that when you're there and as you're doing it, you have a great playbook.
Absolutely. There's that word again, the process. Documenting that process, it's what it's all about. I'm with you, Joe. We share that same philosophy we have for a while now. I want to know, and I know this, but I want you to share it here with me and the viewers, because I see you. I love your videos. What do you do? What do you currently do now? So I know you were training, obviously back then, Joe, for the Olympics. What do you do? Give me an idea. Like, what do you do today for exercise? What does that look like?
Exercise. Yeah. Well, so It's funny. I break the sports and activities that I do into two different categories. One is a category where when I'm doing the actual activity, I can think about what I might want to eat for dinner and I won't get hurt. On the other side, I do sports and activities where if I think about what I want for dinner, I'm going to get very hurt. So, in the first category, you have sports like running. Love it. And that's not to say that I'm always spacing out and thinking about other things when I run. I think a lot about my technique when I run. But, the thing with running that I enjoy is that one step, right? One step is one motion. And I think figuring out how to repeat a motion over and over and over again with just a little bit more efficiency. And then you see over a marathon, over running 26 miles, what difference that makes, or even a 5K or a 10K. I think running is this very predictable and static movement. And you could say the same for walking. It doesn't matter what it is, right? But I think you have that. And so I do like to do marathons, and I run one or two marathons a year, and that kind of keeps me sharp and thinking big picture and long term. And then I'm still very active in paddle sports, and I do all kinds of paddling. I like to run rivers on whitewater. I like to do stand-up paddleboard on whitewater. Sometimes interesting adventures just come my way that I wasn't expecting. A few years ago, a few guys invited me to paddle a kayak from Havana, Cuba to Key West, Florida, 113 miles across the Florida Straits. And we did it. And it was just a very interesting journey. And I think that most importantly, I'm always just looking for things that I can learn, because every time I can learn something, it's not so much that I go back to, it's like the Gary Vee example. It's not so much just what I can do, but I think about how I am learning, like what worked, because every time I dissect that and I prove that that process, that strategy works, I can incorporate it into just yet another lesson. So right now it's skateboarding. Learning how to skate,
Yep.
the least likely guy to ever do, and it's slow and it's not ever what I expected to be doing. But I'm applying the same techniques that I've always used, and it's cool because it's not only an exercise of flow, which I value. It's a state that I value very, very much, but it just allows me to think about how I'm doing it and what the process is going to look like. And I get to sort of see if it still works teaching myself to skateboard at this age.
There's that, that word play just comes to mind again, Joe. And there's a lot of things I love about how you do things and your philosophy. That's one of them. It's just if I were to hear what you just said, I mean, that just sounds fun, exciting. Wow, he's trying, he's exploring, it's this process. And versus like, I got to go to the gym again. I got to go for. There's a difference in like how you view it, and I can't help but sense, and maybe it's because you said it at the beginning, now it's implemented in my head, but everything you say is just there's a process and there's play and there's experimentation and there's this trying and learning and growing, and that's what it seems like. That's what how you view it. And I mean, man, if you view it that way, what a different way to view it than I got to go be a hamster on this treadmill. And do you know what I mean? It's like it gets repetition, routine, boring.
I do. I think one thing, though, I just sort of want to maybe caution would not be the exact word, but I just sort of want to maybe counterbalance my own ideology here, or that of always being out on the edge and always learning, is that the counterbalance to it is that there is a gym, so to speak, that I go to every day. I do have, as we both do, we have a morning practice that we do that is 7 days a week, no days off. It's just, they're not tricky, hard things, but that is the gym. And it never feels like a grudge. I accept that not every day is going to be a good day. You and I recently exchanged a few messages about meditation. And I think that I certainly went into meditation with a certain expectation, was that it was always going to be a certain way. And it's taken having done it every day for 2, 3 years now to just really accept it for what it is, that practice of mindfulness is just acknowledging where you are. And once you get there, it becomes really good. I sort of love that the saying about a meditation student and their meditation teacher. It's don't want to completely mess up this story. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but the student says to his teacher about in the meditation, "Gosh, I'm really having a hard time with it. I just can't seem to stay focused. I'm not finding any quiet or calm or peace." And the teacher says, "Don't worry, this too will pass." And a week later, the student comes back and says, "Oh my gosh, that was such great advice. The meditation has been so great." And the teacher says, "This too will pass." It's not one of these things that just moves one direction, but I just want to point out that I think if you want to put yourself out on the edge to try new things and to have that spirit of play and learning, that I also think that you need to counterbalance it with something that is every day, something that is very doable, something very achievable. I'm not talking about 10-mile runs here every day. I'm just talking about teaching yourself how to wake up for yourself in the morning, not waking up for something else or someone else, but how to wake up for yourself in the morning. And even if that's just 5 minutes, that's enough to keep that chain intact.
Waking up for yourself. I love that. Waking up, learn to wake up for yourself. I love that phrase right there, Joe. I'm going to use that myself. One other thing you said in there, I love that too. Like the gym, like I have my own gym I go to every day. It's such just a way of thinking. Like, and you're saying, hey, my gym every day is my habits that I do, and you could call that your gym. I just love that. It's just a different kind of way of thinking about it, and it's not that physical gym that has all the machines. Nothing wrong with that one. I go to that one too daily, but that mind gym, if you will, and your habits and doing that morning rituals like you do and I do. I love that philosophy. It's just a different way of looking at things. I have a question when it comes to like staying disciplined, because it's whether it's just even meditation, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's running, whatever it may be. How do you, Joe? What do you do to stay disciplined, if you will, committed, focused? Because you're a busy guy, you got a lot going on, and you travel a bunch. I follow you, and how do you stay disciplined, focused, committed when you have all this going on?
It's been an evolution over time, and I'll say that the practice that I'm successfully doing today, as I got started with it, I can't say that I was 100% on every piece of the practice all along, and I didn't set out trying to do all things at once, but it took a while to get going with it. But I would say that I don't spend time thinking about the commitment or the discipline. I don't. I think that to me, that's sort of the willpower-ish part of the equation, and we know that's enough to potentially get us started. But we're going to have to really find other ways to keep it going. But I just think that the very best way, I'll just be very specific how I sort of approach this, or how I sort of started it. I use that, are you willing? I always ask people, are you willing to wake up 5 minutes earlier tomorrow than you did today? And with those 5 minutes, to basically do 3 things. Number one, not touch your phone or any technology, no silence. Just silence. Number 2, drink a glass of water. And then number 3, answer 3 questions on paper with a pencil or a pen and write down those answers. And most people are going to say, yes, I can do that. I think if you lay out an hour-long morning practice for them and say, can you do that? They'll say, it sounds good, but they'll never do it. I think you really have to start with 5 minutes, and if it ends with 5 minutes, and that's all it ever is, if all we did, because I think if you and I went into downtown San Diego right now and we interviewed people coming out of office buildings at work, and we asked 100 of them, why did you wake up at the time you did this morning? Regardless of what you did, they would tell you because I had to be at work by X time, or because I had to get the kids to school by that. That is what I'm always looking for. Are you setting your day based on something else or someone else? Those are good things. But if you're not waking up for yourself first, how can you really be bringing your very best? And 5 minutes is all it takes to start the day with silence, with water, and answering 3 reflective questions about yourself. And then it's like game on from there. We can build up anything from there.
Yeah.
And even if you have a 5:30 a.m. flight, and I do this sometimes because I normally like to, if my morning practice takes me an hour, that's nice. But if I have a 5:30 flight, I'm cutting my practice down to 5 or 10 minutes. Sure. It's just a fact. I'll make up some of the other things later in the day, but I try to be pretty gentle with myself on this, and that's a big part of it. We've got to be gentle as we work our way into it.
I still love that, just waking up for yourself. I keep coming back to that. And you know what I love that you just mentioned, Joe, that you did? Like, hey, even if I have an early flight, what I noticed that you said is like, hey, I don't just scrap it and start tomorrow. You still get it in. Like, you keep the habit. And if I'm wrong here, tell me. What I heard from you is like, hey, I still keep the habit. I might shave it down to 5 minutes, but I still do it. And that's pretty phenomenal because, they say, hey, it's keeping the habit sometimes is more important than the amount. And even the 5 minutes. And I love that, Joe, because I believe, I call it, I have clients sometimes who don't say that, they say they have no time. I call it, 5 to thrive. 5 minutes, 5 to thrive. 5 minutes in the morning to thrive the rest of the day. And if you don't have 5 minutes, I think, who is it that says it, Joe? I think it's Tony Robbins. And, this is kind of brutal or aggressive, but he says, hey, man, if you don't have and he says 10 minutes or 15. He goes, if you don't have 15 minutes, you don't have a life. And that's kind of aggressive, but I'm even saying, forget 15. You and I are saying, hey, 5 minutes. If you don't have 5 minutes, come on, right? So
well, and I just think even if it's you have to wake up at a stupid, silly hour because of a flight. I don't know that there's much of a difference between 3:45 in the morning and 40 in the morning.
Right, exactly.
But I think as you work into this, and this is what I found was that. I know morning routine. It's like morning routines and morning habits. It's like porn these days. It's like everywhere. It is just so overdone in so many ways. But I think what I found as I worked into something that worked well for me, what was great about it was that I started to work on what I was doing in those last 90 minutes, 2 hours before I went to sleep at night. Ultimately, even just sleeping better is a big part of this. It's like people say, I don't have time. And again, I can just reference this not from other people, but what a mess my own life was at that low point of working with USA Kayak. My winding down habits were anything but winding down. My bed, you had a laptop, a tablet, a phone, and falling asleep with a cup of coffee on the table and the TV on. I mean, every bad habit you can imagine was right there. And then, of course, with the poor ways I put myself down and the ways I was not letting stress out of my system, of course I was going to wake up between 3 and 4 in the morning and stress out about something that was happening at work, and then wake up at 6:45 knowing I had to be at work by a certain time, feeling completely stupid why I let that problem keep me up between 3 and 4 in the morning. So much of this, it just has to start somewhere. And I guess this is the overarching theme of everything, no matter where you are. And yes, we've talked about some really important points. None of this happened quickly for me. It never has, not as in not winning an Olympic gold medal and not getting my life back on track during that low point with USA Canoe Kayak. It was the long game. There was nothing, there was no hacks, there were no shortcuts, there were no quick fixes. Everything took time, and it still does today. And I just have come to enjoy that process and understand the words long game mean something a little bit different to me today maybe than they did 20 years ago.
Yeah, I just love your commitment to the process, and it's just I hate to keep using the same words, but that's exactly it. Like the long game, the process, call it what you will. It's not like this short, quick. And I like that what you said, Joe. And I'm such a big fan of what you said. Is like this, in today's day and age, we want instant gratification quickly, and all these hacks. And sometimes what we're looking to do isn't a hack. Especially like if you're looking to lose 30 pounds, there's no. I mean, there's plenty out there that says you can lose it in 7 days, but there's no hack. There's just hard work, commitment, discipline, effort. Get it done. Be consistent. Even if it's 5 minutes a day, just get it done. So I'm with you, Joe. It's about the long game. Put in the time, energy, effort, and you'll get the results. All right, Joe. So I have a question. So when it comes to, I believe like healthy mind, I subscribe to this philosophy, and I believe you do as well. I think we both see eye to eye on this. Healthy mind, healthy body, healthy business. It contributes to successful business. And I'm just curious, do you believe, I want to hear from you, do you believe health and exercise, does that contribute to your overall success, business success, and everything you have going on today with business? And if so, how?
Now, it's a great question. And I just want to say that, in our efforts to be healthier physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, there's no one right place to start in that area. I mean, I know people that have chosen the spiritual side first, or the mental side first, or the emotional side first. But I think you and I are a little bit more in the same court. Like, we started with the physical health side first. It's like, get that in order, and the other things begin to fall into place. And that's the way it did happen for me. And what I find with when I'm kind of able to check the box on physical health, a few things happen. Obviously, the most important is that in our jobs of managing energy and cultivating energy, that's how we cultivate it. That's how we really figure out how to replenish it and fill that tank up a bit. And we're never playing a time game. I just believe we're playing an energy game. So the physical exercise is huge on that. And then secondly, with that energy, I think what happens is that you find ways to be more efficient and more effective in what you do. I noticed at USA Canoe Kayak, as I really started, when I was the CEO, when I started to really prioritize exercise first and getting that physical health piece done, I was much more efficient and much more strategic about what I would do and what I wouldn't do. And I ended up getting much more done in shorter periods of time. Again, no hacks, no shortcuts, doing the real work, but just organizing my time so much better. And then third, by really working on that idea of filling the tanks the right way, the physical health tank the right way, I became more interested in, okay, what are some extensions of this? I became more curious. I wanted to learn, how could I become mentally more focused, get more clarity in what I'm doing? How can I use this to build relationships with more like-minded people? Again, I go back to people who work out during lunchtime. Would you rather hang out with people who go to the effort to work out during lunch and all that goes along with that? Or do you want to hang out with the people going to the pizza bar? There were great people that went to the pizza bar. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But the other people that were willing to go the extra mile to work out during lunch, that just was a good fit for me. So emotionally, I was connecting with really good people. And then arguably, I should have moved this up much earlier in my health practice. But as I was physically feeling better, I wish I had really moved gratitude, the practice of gratitude, up right there at the very beginning when I started to work out, to just be grateful for being able to move my body in a certain way, making the time and the people I got to do it with and the opportunities that it brought me. And I did bring that into the equation, but I brought it in later. And I definitely encourage people that whatever steps that they take, and all steps are a good step, try to do it in lockstep with having that gratitude practice. Whether you write what you're grateful down in a journal, whether you say it out loud before you have meals, however that works, even if you just think it to yourself, I think that makes a really, really big difference in that who you become in the process.
Could not agree with you more. You know what I love that you did there, Joe, is you addressed both the physical and the mental, and the gratitude practice, and not just the physical, and just actually there's a couple of things in there, even your connections and who you spend time with. There was a lot in there, which is awesome. So it wasn't just one addressed, and it wasn't just one thing. Hey, start with 100 burpees per day, which Brian Johnson from like Philosopher's Notes does, which is awesome. But you addressed a couple other aspects there, and I love that, because that is the whole healthy mind, healthy body. That's how I do believe that is important, and obviously so do you, Joe. I'm curious. A couple more questions here, by the way. I appreciate your time. We all have failures and setbacks. It's part of life. I know it's going to happen. Doesn't mean I have to like it, but it's going to happen. I get it. How do you handle like someone's out to like be consistent with meditation, like I am, looking to lose weight, looking to be healthy, fit, keep a gratitude journal, whatever it may be, and they fail, and they try it and they fail. Something like that's happened to you, Joe. How do you handle failure, letdown, disappointment, setbacks, and stay focused to keep going and committed to your goals? How do you handle that?
I think one of the things that I think about in this area is, what is the failure? What is the lesson learned? I would say that at this day and age, where I hope to catch myself on the failure is the gratitude part. That's probably I'm just speaking for myself here.
Sure.
That's the one I want to make sure that I keep in line, because I think even teaching yourself, I think if you can really pick out the things to be grateful for when not so good things happen, or what I call the challenging gratitude, that's where you really begin to see growth, and you develop that sense of forgiveness, and you keep those channels really to be gentle with yourself in line. And I think if you do that, I think overcoming setbacks and loss, or not achieving the goals that you want, becomes so much better. I think it also comes back to the long game philosophy. It's really hard to be disappointed if you trust the person you're becoming in the process of this journey. That's a big one, Mike. And that's what I know 100% for sure. Just to use an example I'm familiar with, all these young people that are pursuing the Olympics in the sport of canoeing, almost none of them are going to be gold medalists at the Olympic Games. A few of them are, but most of them are not going to be. But it's not the gold medal that's going to change their life. I can see that the experience of doing this sport and the things they learn, of putting themselves out there, and I've never found things to be much lower on the vulnerability scale than the start gate of the Olympic Games or of a national team trials race. I mean, that's a vulnerable state. Hey, you're naked in the start gate. It's just you and the course, and all the talk is done, and it's just time to perform. And that's just why I think figuratively we want to figure out ways to put ourselves on the start line every day. And I don't talk about finish lines ever. What I do is I talk about trying to get people onto the start line every day and figuring out what that process looks like for you. And I think when you do that, I think from the way I see the shortest answer to your question about failure is that because of the way I practice every day, go to the gym each day, and the way I challenge myself and try to take risk each day, the way I see it now is that I'm never more than 24 hours away from going back to the start line again.
I've seen that from you several times. I just get people to the start line, Joe. It's one of my favorite kind of, call it what you will, philosophies, way of thinking. And geez, I could even apply that to like, hey, wake up for you that day. Waking up for me is almost to some extent get myself to that start line, just waking up for me. And
Absolutely.
I've seen that from you, Joe, and I've loved that. I think I saw this probably a year ago when I first saw that concept from you, and I just loved it. Like you say, I don't talk about finish lines. I talk about getting people to the start line. I love that. All right, Joe, let me ask you this. So what 3 habits would you say, I know there's plenty, there's a lot of them, but what 3 habits do you think every entrepreneur should have, should have in their bag of tricks daily?
All right, here it goes. I would say number one, that the big leaps in life are a function of the small steps you take every day. Number
Love that.
two, the noise can be quieted. I like that one. These change for me a bit, but these are my three right now.
Sure.
And number three, choose depth over width. I
Depth.
think that a lot of entrepreneurs, especially, think a lot about scale and serving lots of people. I think the depth over width is a really important one, and I'm always challenge people to just take the idea and serve one person deeply. And you do that, and you figure out how to do that, and you'll figure out how to make it bigger, make it better. But I think we obsess with scale and growth before we really figure out what our true calling is, what our true talents are, and kind of how we join them all together. And so, go deep, go deep over wide. An inch, go an inch wide and a mile deep over an inch wide, a mile wide and an inch deep.
I love that. It's almost, you could say, quality over quantity, kind of. I mean, it's kind of that same idea. Go deep, not so much wide. I absolutely love that. I've seen that from you before. I love that. I love that concept. Thank you, Joe, for that. One more question here, and it's just a resource question. What is, and I know there's several, I'm sure, Joe, but what is your favorite? What's the favorite? What's the most, I guess, the one that's impacted you the most, whether it's health, wellness, or even business book that you have read that you're like, man, that thing was awesome, and I think everyone should read it. Does one come to mind?
Yeah, I got to go three books. I got to
Okay, deal.
go. So,
Deal.
and in no particular order, I think Yvonne Chouinard's "Let My People Go Surfing," great book. He founder of Patagonia, great call to action in that idea of how entrepreneurs can really build a business around a great cause and a great idea. Also, Jim Loehr, sports psychologist, wrote the book "The Power of Full Engagement." Wonderful, wonderful book. I love that one. And then third, and really at probably the top of my list, is James Altucher's book "Choose Yourself."
Yes, I've read that.
And so many of these books, Mike, it's not about what's in the book. It's just the timing, these messages that find you at the right time. So James Altucher's book really found me at the right time.
I actually learned of James and Choose Yourself, that book, from you, Joe. I heard you talking about it, and I got it, and I read it. Absolutely loved it. And but those other two, I know the third book, the second book. I'm gonna have to look into that one. But thank you for sharing that. Three awesome books. I just added two to my reading list for this year. I appreciate that.
And I say, my wife Lisa just put this book in front of me, the Enam Cara, and this is a book, Celtic Wisdom by John O'Donohue. And this was such an interesting story. Lisa and I were driving out to Oklahoma a couple of years ago, and we were listening to a podcast on Being with Krista Tippett interviewing John O'Donohue, and an Irish poet, former priest, mystic. And I was so John O'Donohue talked about in this podcast about his conversations with people at the end of their lives. Right at the moment, just before they were about to pass, in that moment where they had just, regardless of how they had lived their life, that point where they had just let go, and they were at peace and they were good with what happened. And O'Donohue talked about the differences in people who figuratively squeezed every last bit out of the orange versus people who left juice still in that and the orange. And I gotta say, the interview made us go out, and we ordered like 6 or 7 of O'Donohue's books off of Amazon. And this one is the Enam Cara, and it's great work. O'Donohue passed a few years ago, but it takes me a long time to read one page of his work, but it's really cool. But that's how he really caught my attention and got my respect. Is it makes me think that long game picture, and what do we want that end to look like? Do we want to be those kinds of people that squeezed every last bit out of the orange, or did we leave juice in the orange?
I love that. I love that visual, and I love that whole idea. And I appreciate you share. I just added 3 books, Joe, to my my reading list for the year. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate it. I had not heard of that book, so thank you. Speaking of thank you, I seriously, Joe, can't not thank you enough for your time. I mean, you spent, I think, like almost an hour here with me and with the community. Thank you so much. Now, if people want to like connect with you or learn more about you, which I think they should, because I subscribe to your, Sunday Morning Joe newsletter. It's phenomenal. Every week, I get just value out of it. So let me just be quiet and let you tell people how they can connect with you or get in contact with you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I love doing this, and I just love the way our friendship has developed over the years as well. And point out that I just want your community to know you have literally been a part of my own coaching program, the 5 with Joe program, and which in the areas of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual health and those habits, the physical health piece comes from the wellness bucket and Mike, and I love that and very grateful for what you've contributed to opportunities that I have today. So thank you. And I'll just say that joejacobi.com, joejacobi.com is my website. And the main reason to go there is to subscribe to Sunday Morning Joe, which is my weekly newsletter that I write about improving performance, overcoming challenge, and aligning with purpose. And it's absolutely free. And it's just outside of building relationships with people and spending time with my friends and family. Sunday Morning Joe is kind of the love of my life. I never thought I would put as much into writing as I do. I just love the creative outlet, and I advocate for other people to try that. And that's the best place to contact. And in the future, I hope when people are watching this, they will have some really great options to come find you and I working together at live events. And really, I can't wait to help you and help you build better entrepreneurs, give entrepreneurs better opportunities, and give them better resources and tools for them to be successful. And that will be a good thing. Those will be days with big old honking check marks, and we're doing that together. So thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, Joe. And again, thank you for this hour packed with crazy value. And I want to say one more time, I want to emphasize how much your Sunday Morning Joe, how much it's made an impact in my life, just the value I get from it. And I'll just say one more thing, Joe, is I love the videos. Guys, Joe puts together sometimes these videos. One of my favorites today, Joe, is one that you were driving around with your dad. It was just a cool and funny video all at the same time. So anyways, I won't keep it any longer. Guys, Joe Jacobi, subscribe to his newsletter. Check him out. He's awesome. And you guys are awesome for being here. Joe, thank you so much. Have an awesome day, and I'll hopefully see you soon.
All right. Look forward to it. Thanks, Mike.
Likewise. Cheers.